three guys jump out to rob the two couples that are walking at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she doesn't give up her purse, and they very cowardly shoot her. Well, she wound up being the first homicide of 2006.
Welcome to the Cops and Riders podcast. Your host, Sergeant Patrick O'Donnell, worked the streets in one of the nation's largest police departments for over 25 years. Ride along with O'Donnell and his expert guests as they help you navigate the oftentimes confusing and misunderstood world of law enforcement. O'Donnell and his guests on this show do not represent any law enforcement agency. The content of this show is not meant to be legal advice. You think you need a lawyer? You probably do.
Hey, Cops and Writers, thanks for being here with us today for another episode of the Cops and Writers podcast. I'm Patrick O'Donnell, and I'll be your host for today's show. This show is listener supported, so thanks to all of you who keep the show going. I would especially like to thank those of you who are patrons of the show. Your generosity helps pay for the software, equipment, and my time producing this show. Yes, you too can become a patron for less than a cup of coffee or a pint of Guinness. Just head on over to patreon.com/Cops and Writers. Today's show takes us to one of my favorite places in the world, Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is home to the Savannah College of Art and Design, also known as SCAD. Some of the best food ever, history, haunted houses, and ghost tours, and riverboats. It also has a seedy underbelly. That's what we're going to be talking about today with former Savannah Police Department homicide detective Kevin Grogan. Kevin Grogan is an Army combat veteran and former Savannah Police Department homicide detective. He has worked with a variety of assignments within the Savannah Police Department, including Vice and multi-agency task forces. Kevin is also a screenwriter, producer, and author of the Savannah True Crime Trilogy, with his latest book, No Greater Honor, No Bigger Failure. Please enjoy part one of this discussion with someone who has felt the weight of the badge and the ultimate cost it can have on someone. Part two will go live next Sunday. Kevin Grogan, welcome to the show.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk to you today because we're going to be talking about Savannah, one of my favorite places in the country, if not in the world. My full disclosure, my daughter went to SCAD for 4 years,
Okay.
graduated from there. And I visited as much as humanly possible because I absolutely love that city. And I got to tell you, I love the city, and I don't know if I love Tybee Island even more. I'm not sure. But did you ever get a chance to go over to Tybee?
Oh yeah, you know, if you can see my complexion at all, you should probably know immediately that I avoid the beach at all costs. But Tybee's a hop, skip, and a jump away. So I've spent a bunch of time there. I got buddies who live out there, so I'm there every so often.
Yeah, I absolutely love Tybee. For those who don't know, it's about 30 miles east of Savannah. And, it's a straight shot. It's an easy drive. And some people call it, they run on Tybee time. It's kind of freeze dried from the 60s and 70s. And what I found interesting, and you probably know a lot more about this than I do, they film movies there.
Oh yeah, no, Savannah is a huge. The film industry is huge, and it's partly because of SCAD. The
Sure.
resource, the infrastructure that SCAD's developed for the film industry, but it's also Savannah. I mean, it is. I've been here for 23 years, and it really is very close to the, if not the prettiest city in the country. It's very close.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And they were filming the reboot of Baywatch when we were there. They had all the Baywatch
I,
trucks and
I,
all that, and we saw The Rock and Zac Efron and all these Baywatch people doing these slow run down the beach. Yeah, you just have to laugh
yep.
while you're watching that. And I remember I was going up to one of the security guys and then one of the film people, and I'm like, "Don't you have beaches in California? Why are you going to the opposite coast to film a story about something that happens over on the Pacific side?" And they're like, "Money. It's a
Tax
lot
breaks,
cheaper.
baby.
It's a lot
Yep.
cheaper to
Yeah.
film our movie in Tybee Island than it is, over in California." And I'm like, "Never thought of that. That makes sense."
No, for sure. The tax breaks are tremendous here, and like I said, that the film business has been kind of quiet for the last year or two, but it's starting. There's some major productions coming back in, but big movies have been shot here, so it's pretty cool. And I've met a lot of cool people trying to dabble in that world too. You know.
Did you ever have any exposure to like any movie stars or famous people while you were there?
Oh yeah, I mean there's famous people that come in and out of Savannah all the time, but I've been writing books for 9 years now. So especially after the release of my first one, uh, I stuck my nose into the business as deep as I could. I've been on movie sets and met uh, plenty of big name actors, but mostly to try to meet the producers. Like, hey man,
Sure.
here's my project, let's fund it.
Right.
But I've seen a good bit of how the movie business works and how to get things done. And just like anything else, it all comes down to money and funding.
Yeah. Any funny stories about any of the actors? Anything interesting?
Uh, Not so much from my post
Okay.
police career, but working off duty when they were shooting SpongeBob. I was working off duty in uniform, standing on Broughton Street, which is Main Street,
Oh yeah.
and Antonio Banderas was playing the pirate,
Right.
and I was looking one way and stepped backwards right into him and knocked him over. And he was he was super gracious and cool about it, but the entourage around him lost their mind. So
Oh
I
my
got
god.
paid for the day, but they said you can go home now.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, all right,
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
yeah, it
My brush with
stuff
greatness,
happens.
my brush with greatness was I'm kind of a meathead and so is my son, and we'd work out at Alvin's in Savannah.
Okay, yep,
This is a few years back, and they were filming Baywatch.
South Side.
Yeah. And, not the best neighborhood, probably not the worst. That was kind of my take by the cars and the vibe, that kind of thing. And we walk, we get in the parking lot, and here's this Ford Raptor truck, and it was all tricked out. And I'm like, this does not belong in this neighborhood. And he's like, what are you talking about, Dad? And I'm like, this is just sticking out like a sore thumb. There's something going on. So we go inside the gym. And for those who don't know, it's not even there anymore, but it was just more or less just a meathead gym. There's duct tape around the benches, et cetera, et cetera.
It was a real gym. No,
It,
Alvin's was a real gym, no doubt.
yep. So we went there every day whenever we'd go down there, and sure enough, there's the Rock with two of his bodyguards, and my son is like, "That's the Rock. It's the Rock," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is. What should we do?" I said, "Leave him alone. That's what we should do. He doesn't want to talk to
Right,
us."
he's working out. Make sure you stay out of the way.
Yeah, and his two bodyguards were larger than him. I didn't think it was possible. This guy, The Rock in life, Dwayne Johnson is gigantic. He is a very large man. His bodyguards were larger than him.
Uh,
And
he's a huge man. He's a huge personality. He's good friends with a good buddy of mine, Mel Chansey. They're actually working on a production together. It's $7 company. Mel's working on a project with them. So they're big dudes, but bigger personality. And
yes,
I've never heard a bad word about him.
so they were walking out, and we did the gym nod, and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he says, "Hey guys, how are you doing?" And that was our brush with him. Totally nice dude. And then later on, like the next day, we're at the boardwalk on Tybee, and there's a girl selling ice cream, blah blah blah. And I said, "Hey, do any of the stars ever come over here and like buy ice cream from you?" She said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Who's the nicest guy?" She said, "The Rock all day. He leaves huge tips. He's very nice. He treats us really well." I said, "Okay, who's the biggest asshole?" She said, "Zac Efron. I can't stand him. He treats us like garbage." And I'm like, "Okay,
That's
that makes
crazy.
sense. That makes sense." But
That's
anyways,
crazy.
there's our Hollywood
Oh yeah,
minute for everybody.
yeah. There you go. Go Savannah.
Yeah,
They're everywhere. The SCAD Film Festival brings a lot of big names in.
I can only imagine. But let's start with you. That's why we're here. In the beginning, where did you grow up and how would you describe your childhood?
I grew up in the first town established in Connecticut, Windsor, which was settled in 1633, 100 years before the beautiful city of Savannah. But my childhood was great. I grew up. Both my folks were in my house. I'm the youngest of five kids,
Okay.
so I was a spoiled little shit. Uh, but my childhood was great. Nothing to cry about there for sure.
What did your mom and dad do for a living?
My mother was a teacher. My father was an engineer.
Okay. So highly educated, and your brothers and sisters, they wound up being, what direction did they go?
All college kids. I'll call
Okay.
my brother's Ivy League graduate, and he works in humanitarian affairs at the United Nations.
Wow.
So higher intellectual, and then me.
Well, I'm kind of the opposite, where my brother and I were the first ones in the family to go to college. And I mean, I got D's and F's, through most of it. I was a horrible, horrible student. Then I found out later that I'm dyslexic. I can't read fast at
Uh,
all, and I have a hard time comprehending. So that, I remember a teacher, I went to Catholic grade school. Both my parents are Irish immigrants. So, I mean, like, education was kind of secondary. And I remember a parent teacher conference. I'm like in fourth or fifth grade, and the teacher's like, "Patrick's stupid. He's just dumb." And I'm like, "I am sitting
it
here.
was a different day and age, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're not doing much for my self-esteem. No eighth place trophies for me. Thank you very much. But
Yeah.
but hey, you overcome, you adapt, you make it through it. But how would your friends in high school describe you?
Back then,
Yeah.
a bullshitter. I was you know I was all about uh, playing sports, chasing girls. That was my mo, and I would do or say anything to make those happen for me. So uh,
What was your
yeah,
sport
I,
of
I lived
choice?
in a
What
very
what'd you play?
uh, I loved hockey. I wasn't very good at it, but martial arts, karate and boxing were really
Cool.
what I focused on.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hence the beautiful appearance, because I've had the crap kicked out of me several times.
You and me both. What year did you graduate from high school? We're probably pretty close in age.
1993.
Okay, I was 82, so I'm older. But it was, boxing was
Now,
huge.
I have
Martial
not
arts was
aged well,
huge.
man. I haven't aged well at all.
Well, I've had my nose broken so many times, it became like Gumby. I could just like move it around. It was bad.
Yep.
But yeah. So you're in high school, and what were you thinking? It's like, okay, am I going to go to college right away? Am I going to get a job? What direction were you heading? What's the craziest thing you saw when you were a cop? My first week on the job, a guy running at me with a butcher knife. He just killed his brother over the last hot dog. That's chapter 1. There are 33 more. Police Stories, The Rookie Years, just launched. Available now on Amazon. Search Police Stories Patrick O'Donnell or click the link in the show notes. Back to the show.
No, college was always the direction, and law enforcement was what was going to follow, and that's pretty much since my earliest memories. I remember 1981 when President Reagan got shot. That was kind of my call to service. I was like, hey, I wanted to be in the Secret Service.
Sure.
They always tell kids you can be whatever you want. What they don't tell you is if you don't have uh, 20/20 vision, that's correctable. You'll never be in the Secret Service, and I'm blind as the bat. So that didn't happen. But my uncle, so my mother's sister's husband, was a big deal in Springfield, Massachusetts. He worked
Okay.
narcotics and homicide and that. So I would go up to my grandmother's house, and she would save all the clippings from the newspapers with my Uncle Mac, and I would flip through those like they were the coolest stories in the history of the world. So I knew right away that that's what I was going to do. So when I got out of high school, I went to Westfield State College, which is just north of where I grew up, probably 20 minutes, half an hour northwest of where I grew up, outside of the city of Springfield, Mass. And they had a very good, still do have a very good criminal justice program. So that's what I did.
Gotcha. Now, what did mom and dad say that, hey, I want to be a cop? What was their reaction?
My parents, my parents were uh, as supportive in anything we did, and they were so polar opposite. Where my father was very trade school, learn a skill, develop it, learn how to work. My mother was liberal arts, read, think, uh, dream big, those types of things. So
Yeah.
I could have told them I was going to go join the circus. They would have cautioned me on the. It would have driven my father crazy. My mother would have cautioned me on how things go, but they would have let me go do it. My parents were very good about letting me make my own mistakes.
So you get out of college, and did you go get your first cop job right away?
Immediately. Yeah, right. I got a job in my hometown of Windsor
Oh,
right as I was graduating college. So I pretty much came home for a couple of weeks and went to the police academy, which was a blessing and a curse all at the same time. So I was very young, still in my party days. So I drinking like an idiot, which has followed me pretty much through my life. Um, but being a police officer in your hometown where you grew up, being the youngest of five kids, where your mother taught at the high school, your father
ooh,
was very active in the recreational sports and that kind of stuff. So I'm in the academy, and people are making, cops. My department was making traffic stops, and it was like, I know Grogan, I know Grogan. And they're like, we don't even know who the fuck that is, because I'm in the academy. I'm not the real police
right.
yet, but so by the time I got to the department, people were already sick of me. They're like, oh Jesus, you're that guy. But I didn't hand, like I said, my world was very small. My whole existence was pretty much in a 30-mile radius between uh, where I grew up, where I went to college, that kind of stuff. So I lived in where I thought I was worldly. I didn't know shit about shit. That's mostly because I was 23 years old. But
Right.
so it didn't work out so great. The chief and I had a very serious talk, and he said, maybe you should try something different. And that was heartbreaking to me because I had always wanted to be a cop, but
Yeah.
I saw his point. So I left that department and joined a gang, the United States Army, and that broadened my horizons quite a bit.
Why the army? Why not another branch?
You know what? I looked at all of them.
Okay.
Um, I love to say that two of my buddies, when we graduated high school, I went to college. We wanted to be Marines,
Yeah.
and I went with them to the recruiting station, and they gave us an intelligence test, and I passed, so they wouldn't let me in. But those two idiots, they got in no problem. Nah, the army was just the right thing. I knew I wanted to work protection, and there was this new thing back then in around 1996, 98 called the internet, and I had looked into a couple of opportunities there, and I saw that there was an opportunity in the Army to work protection. So, like I said, I always wanted to be in the Secret Service, but I didn't meet the uh, vision requirements. So I got a chance to do it in the Army. I actually wound up being stationed in Germany in the one company in all of Europe that provides protection, and I just happened to get assigned to that company. So if that tells you it was meant to be, I don't know. I don't know what will, but I wound up working protection. Uh, Got to see all of, if not most of, if not all of Europe, and some other fancy places. But it was it
Okay.
was really cool. I got to see uh, the commanding general of the United States Army Europe was a four-star. His name was Montgomery Meigs, a historic figure in the Army. His great uncle was the first quartermaster general of the Army. But I got to see that man lead and command. So I got to see leadership at its highest levels. And the man was, I mean, they don't hand out stars in the Army, and they definitely don't hand out four of them. So
So what
being able
about
to serve that close to,
his style or command presence or his leadership? What stuck out in your head? You just said that, you learned a lot from him. What exactly did you
well,
learn from him?
he was a soldier, and I can't think of a bigger compliment that I can give somebody. He was truthfully everything I think a soldier should be. West Point grad. He was a colonel of a brigade commander during the first Gulf War, and did some pretty historic maneuvers there, which ended that war pretty quick. He was a big part of that, but he knew who he was, and he carried his rank and his position like a gentleman. He
Mm.
never had to tell you he was the boss. He never had to tell you he was a general. He never had to say it because you knew in everything he said and did that this man was a leader. And I have taken that. I don't ever need to pound my chest and say, well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm
Yeah,
any of those things. I just am who I am, and I carry it the way I do, and it's mostly because of him. My dad was a lot that way, in that you just are who you are, and don't make apologies for that. Just be who you are. But when you're a leader uh, in a military uh, organization, you know people are looking to you, and he was the one who you could look at him anytime, and there was no question who was in charge ever.
sure. Wow. So you do your stint in the army. How long were you in?
5 years, 5 years. Yeah. So I,
5 years.
I did my first. I was in the army at a really cool time. So I joined in '99. And I got out in 2004. Well, if you remember, in 2001, I
Yeah.
think it was September 11th, something happened in September 11th of 2001. So I was in the Army when we went from a peacetime Army to a very active wartime uh, Army. And I finished up my career. I left Germany, went to Fort Stewart. My son was born, and then I was on the first thing smoking to Solder City, Baghdad in 2003. So I got to see that,
Did you join
and
the
it was one
infantry
of those
then,
things.
or
No,
were?
MP. I was an
Oh,
MP. So,
okay.
military police was my MOS the whole time.
Oh,
I just
okay.
happened to be doing protection. That was my assignment when I was in Germany. But
Gotcha.
I deployed when I was in Germany. I deployed to the Balkans too. I went to Kosovo, which was super cool for me,
Wow.
because I was a political science minor. So
Mm.
the breakup of Yugoslavia in the mid '90s was the big political thing that was going
Oh
on, and
yeah.
I got to not only study it but see it when I was boots on ground. So that was really eye opening for me as a person. Uh, no better education than being somewhere to learn what's going on there. But then again, September 11th happened, and that rest is history. But for me, it got me an all expense paid trip to Baghdad.
Yeah, I have buddies that were there and they were MPs. A lot of their job was guarding prisoners of war, that those
The,
types of things.
Yep,
And,
there was that, and then there was our function. We were assigned to the Second Armored Cavalry Regiment. So we did patrols, and we trained the Iraqi police was
mm,
part of our thing. I wound up doing another protection gig for the Second ACR commander for a short while, Colonel Brad May, another great American, another great leader. But I got a chance to see history.
yeah,
I was in
absolutely.
Baghdad in 2003. It was pretty hot topic back then.
Sure. Now, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll still ask. Knowing what you know now, would you still have joined?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's what I kind of
In
thought.
a heartbeat. I would have joined sooner and probably stayed longer.
Okay.
Knowing what I know now, but yeah, I mean, service to country means everything to me. I don't know that I was horribly patriotic growing up. I mean, I loved America. I was proud, but basic training, uh, that indoctrination of being a soldier and love of country and sense of duty, that that stuck with me, and it's still there.
Sure.
I'm all about it.
So, how long after you got out of the army did you join the Savannah PD, and why Savannah?
Well, I got out at Fort Stewart, which is in Hinesville, Georgia, just southwest of Savannah,
Okay.
and so I got home from Iraq on March 11th, 2004. and I graduated the police academy on March 11th, 2005.
Oh, okay.
So within literally within a year of getting my boots back on American soil, I was graduating the police academy and going to work in Savannah. But I got out of the army that September. I took a job with the Department of Defense or Department of the Army Police Department on Fort Stewart for a very short while, but that was not the law enforcement mission that I was wanting to be part of. I wanted to be a real cop. I
Okay.
wanted to go out and get it. I wanted to solve murders. I wanted to stick my nose in with the big dogs. So my mother-in-law at the time, so my ex-wife's mother, was a sergeant with the Savannah Police Department,
Hmm.
and I went there. The hiring process was quick. It was painless. I was right out of the army, so going to the academy, that was really something I was accustomed to anyway. Uh, so as soon as I could, I got out on the road, and
So, as
that's
far
that's where all the fun began for
yeah,
sure.
so as far as your academy experience, was that like at a tech school or what did that look like?
It was funny because in Connecticut, the police academy is its own thing. Now you have multiple municipalities that do the post certification, and the state patrol, they were upstairs, far more
Oh yeah.
paramilitaristic than but when I got to Savannah, it was the Southeast Regional Academy. So same thing, a bunch of different municipalities,
Mm,
but we didn't have our own building. We were part of Armstrong Atlantic State University, which is now Georgia Southern University. But we were part of the campus. They had a really good criminal justice and law enforcement degree program there, but we also had the police academy. So it's just a couple classrooms there, and then we went to satellite uh, places to do different types of training, like firearm and driving.
sure.
Obviously, that's not on a college campus.
Right. Interesting. So you joined the Savannah PD. How big of a department was that?
Well, I joined the Savannah Chatham Metropolitan Police Department, and
Okay.
I was the first class to graduate. I was in the first class to graduate from the academy of the merged department. So, Chatham County and the city of Savannah had merged. Obviously for financial reasons, but
Yeah.
um, I was very lucky to be there on the ground floor when that happened because the department was we were about 600 sworn at that time. Uh, in a city that's 150,000, but now you've got the whole county, so you're closer to 250, 300,000
Oh, okay.
with all the unincorporated areas.
Gotcha. Now, was it a sheriff or a chief that was in charge?
Chief, chief, yeah.
Okay.
So the Chatham County Sheriff's Department is unlike a lot of sheriff's departments in Georgia, where they have the full law enforcement mission. The sheriff in Chatham County mostly they do have a law enforcement wing, but they mostly cover the jail, the courthouse,
Yeah.
and serving paperwork and that kind of stuff.
Right, right. So you get into the Savannah PD, and Savannah is such a unique city. I mean, we talked at the top of the show, it's like you have SCAD, there's a lot of money that pours in there, and tourism is huge, obviously, as well. And there's, like I said, serious money in there, and there's also serious poverty there as well, living amongst each other. I'm used to, like, in Milwaukee, okay, the ultra rich people aren't close to the very poor people. The people living on by the lake or these really nice, mansions, they're far removed from the poorest people in the city. Where I'm driving down the streets in Savannah and I'm like, there's these beautiful, like Southern style, I think they're mansions, wraparound porches, Spanish moss. It's something out of a movie, or, a picture. And then you go another block and there's these dilapidated houses that are falling in that are just straight up ghetto. And I'm like,
No, my
how does this, I had a hard time wrapping my head around it.
no, and it's a recipe for disaster in one way, and it's a recipe for culture in
Right.
another. The thing is, you have the richest of the rich, so Jones Street and Gaston Street. You have these $1 million homes, and 2, 3 blocks away, you have housing projects
Yeah.
of the with the poorest of poor people, and then now your workforce. So hospitality is a huge thing. Tourism is a huge thing in Savannah. So who takes all the jobs to work in your hotels, your restaurants, and that kind of stuff? Usually poor people. So now everybody's all mixed together, and man, it makes for a hell of a show if you're a cop. Let me tell you.
I was just, that's the
But
first thing that popped in my head when I started doing my research on you. I'm like, oh my God, Savannah is a very unique city. And I would think that optics are everything in a city like that because they still want these kids, paying $50,000, a year for tuition to go to SCAD and tourism, they want the tourists, and I saw firsthand, you know, it's just like how often did either tourists or SCAD students become victims of crimes, like serious crimes?
uh, I wouldn't say often. I always say, Savannah. First of all, again, it's a beautiful city, and you do have, it's so picturesque, and you have SCAD right in the middle of it. Now, SCAD owns half of Savannah.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
SCAD's ba- basically a real estate company at this point.
Yes.
Uh, but if it weren't for SCAD, Savannah would have fallen in on itself because of the way it's run by our city government. But
Sure.
I'm not a political guy, but there's no question that that's and SCAD's $1 billion industry right now,
Oh,
and I'm
absolutely.
not exaggerating. I mean, it's unbelievable. So you say $50,000 a year, I'm thinking she hasn't been there in a while because I'm
Yeah.
sure it's much more than 50,000 a year now.
God.
But that being said, the cool part is this. So when I got out of the academy, I was assigned to the downtown precinct, which is the touristy part of Savannah. I mean, absolutely beautiful. You got the historic district. You got everything that you read about in tourist brochures is in our precinct. But it's surrounded by, again, the poorest of the poor, and that was also in our precinct. So on a Friday night, I could go hang out downtown when the clubs are letting out and hit on girls and do what cops do, think I'm super cool. But if I wanted to go chase bad guys, I could go 2 blocks down the road and I'd be up to my neck in it, and that's exactly what I did. So I got great exposure to both, because the thing is, you go out and you fight crime aggressively, and you can. Sometimes you need a break from that.
Yep.
And let me tell you, rolling down Broughton Street or
Sure.
uh, walking around Forsyth Park, it's a good break from that.
Yeah. I what popped into my head was, down by the Riverwalk. If anybody's ever been there, how many people go ass over tea kettle down those stairs?
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, that's the stone stairs of death is
Yes.
what they're called. Yeah, I mean that's it. That's poor EMS. I would arrive to those calls as late as I could because I already knew how that was going. I mean
Especially
the,
after a
the
couple of
carnage
cocktails. I
at the
can't.
base.
Yeah, I
Oh
can't
yeah,
imagine
and
maneuvering those.
Savannah's a drinking town.
It is.
There's no nobody's shy about that. But yeah,
It's highly encouraged.
I don't know
Yes.
if it's gotten any better, but I have I have several mental images of how the fall down the stairs ends.
Yeah. For those who haven't been there, they have these ridiculous stairs that were probably built 150 years ago that are like 4 feet. From one stair to the next. At least it feels that way. You feel like you're traversing a mountain
Some are
almost.
4, some are 2.5,
Right.
some are like 6 inches.
Yep.
Like you
There's.
said, they're 200 years old, so nobody was sitting there.
Yeah.
They're like, we can get up with these. They'll be fine.
Yeah. I always got a kick out of that. So, as far as like say a SCAD student or a tourist is the victim of a violent crime, is there different buzzers and bells that go off or notifications? You're like, oh shit.
Well, for the police department, no. And
Okay.
the thing is, SCAD. So SCAD has their own security force, and they try to isolate as much as they can for publicity reasons and all that. And I'm not going to go off on SCAD, but they have a certain way of handling things, so it's not as prevalent as you would think. However, the first line of my first book, Black Sheep, White Cop, Savannah Exposed, is if there's one thing Savannah, Georgia hates, it's a dead white girl.
Oh,
let me tell you, the political response that you get when somebody that's not a poor black kid gets killed in Savannah, it's immense. Like Savannah loses its mind. Now, to me, it never made any difference. Somebody gets shot, somebody gets killed. I'm acting the same way, no matter what their socioeconomic background is, no matter what their race is. Cops respond. I've never heard somebody on a 911 call go, "Could you give me the race and ethnicity of the victim, please?" Because they're not going to respond any different. The cops work cases the way they work cases, and I think that's a gross misconception. Now, politicians and media, they respond to different calls differently. So bells and whistles go off for the media
sure.
and politicians, but the police department responds the same way every time.
Yeah, upper management of police and like mayor, etc. They're really good at getting overexcited about things and just overreacting to pretty much everything. And that's universal, I think, in every major metropolitan area. But what I found interesting is there weren't as many kids, especially like from SCAD, that weren't becoming victims because it would be easy hunting. I mean, I remember we went out to eat one time, and there was this kid, in Milwaukee we'd call him a mope. He's just moping around, and he's just looking for a victim. You could tell, and I'm with like I don't know 5 6 people. It's all family, and they're oblivious to him. And I look at him,
Yeah.
we lock eyes, and he looks at me, and he just does an about face and starts walking away. They look for
Right,
an easy.
because they know. I mean, they,
Yeah.
they they thrive on that. They understand, and all I can say is it doesn't happen as much as you think, which is kind of amazing because of the proximity. Again,
Yes.
you got people that mix in. It does happen, but I always say this about Savannah: if you're not buying crack, selling crack, or trying to arrange some sort of crack deal in the city of Savannah, your chances of getting involved in a robbery or shooting or something like that are pretty slim.
Yeah. It's
It happens, but not as
right.
much as you'd think.
That's why people with the crime numbers, etc., they're very skewed where you're victim of the homicide or the non-fatal shooting or whatever, they're usually engaged in some kind of criminality when they become a victim of a crime.
And
Usually,
and the
not
thing
always.
is, the worst part about it is, and it's something that you and I know from professional experience, but it gets glazed over in TV and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you dip your toe, okay, and all it takes is dipping your toe into criminality, you don't even have to be involved in the criminality. If you're close to somebody who is,
Yeah.
and you're just guilty by association, you're just there, the chances of things happening to you, like our big red ball murder when I first started, there was a girl that left a cotillion, and she's walking back. They're walking through one of the scenic squares, and three guys jump out to rob the two couples that are walking at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she doesn't give up her purse, and they very cowardly shoot her. Well, she wound up being the first homicide of 2006, and again, a white girl gets killed in Savannah, they lose their mind. So this special task force was formed. It was called the Expanded Patrol Operation, and basically the chief told us, "Go get them. No leash, no gloves, no nothing. Go get them." And boy, oh boy, did we did. But that happened right at the beginning of my career, so I got thrust right into. I
Mm,
mean, it was a great opportunity for me to develop. So the guys I were working with were some of the best cops in the city. So immediately I'm learning at 100 miles an hour,
sure.
and dipping in it. But so that task force gets formed. The funny thing is, if you look at that from the outside, they were just walking through the square. They weren't bothering anybody. And that's exactly what they were doing. They were walking back to one of the carriage houses right next to the Civic Center in downtown.
Yeah.
But in that carriage house, they were packaging, weighing, and selling dope.
Oh,
Okay, not the
okay.
girl that was there, but the guy she was with were.
Mm,
So the guys that worked that murder tell me that there was no connection between them dealing drugs. We didn't. My partner Josh and I actually were the ones that found them dealing dope from that destination. But I've been told over the years that that absolutely was not corrected, but no connected. But nobody's going to tell me that. I know
Right.
how it works. These guys, I sell you the drugs, you bring it into your apartment, you package it up, and you're going to sell it. I can come rob you and get my dope back, get 100% profit, or if you've already sold it, I'll just rob you of the money. I get 100% profit. So, to me, it's pretty tactical. If I
Yeah.
sell you the drugs, come back and rob you if you're a weak mark. And these guys they were not gangsters. They were not, the college kids that were selling dope out of their carriage house, they were not career criminals. But the guys that they were being supplied by were absolutely career criminals.
Were there organized gangs, like in Milwaukee we had gangster disciples, vice lords, etc. What were the gangs like by you, or were there like serious gang affiliations in Savannah?
Absolute gang affiliations in Savannah, mostly Crips and gangster disciples. There's small contingents of Bloods, and that anywhere you got cities, you got gangs. And the thing is, for the longest time, Savannah wouldn't talk about that. But right towards near the end of my career, because they didn't want it to affect tourism.
Right.
But once you couldn't even say the gang word for the first 4 or 5 years I was with the department. But once it got out and they realized that it didn't affect the tourist dollar or the bottom line, like, okay, you can say gang now. But again, that's city government.
Yeah,
But
it is.
the thing about Savannah, and I don't know that it's unique, but there are the Bloods, Crips, gangster disciples, all that kind of stuff. But more prevalent are the neighborhood gangs.
Sure.
Okay, so guys would click up by their housing project. East Side, West Side was a big thing. The the Bloods, the Crips, and the gangster disciple stuff comes from the guys who go to prison and come back,
Okay.
and they bring that to their neighborhood. So now you get the Hitch Village projects linking up with the Crips because the majority of them that went away to prison, they all had to click up Crip to survive, and then when they came home, they brought some of that to the neighborhood, and that's happened everywhere in every city all over the country. But Savannah, I always say, is very neighborhood because the thing is, in Savannah, we're all cousins. Everybody's related, but if you grew up on the west side and you wind up on the east side, you're gonna have some troubles.
Yeah, the whole cousin thing. Yes, is that your real cousin or is that your play cousin? That's yeah. It always
Now, is
asks.
that you really? But I would love that. We call them Savannah cousins. So are y'all real cousin? Or you Savannah cousins, like
Yeah.
blood cousins or Savannah
Yep.
cousins? And I would always I love those interviews, the street interviews where you're sitting there talking to them like, hey man, what's this dude's name? Oh, that's my cousin. Yeah, but what's his name? Oh, I don't know him like that.
Yeah.
So he's your cousin, but you don't. Yeah, yeah. All
Or
right, dude,
it's
I get it. I
Pookie
get
or
it.
T-Bone. No, what's his real name? I don't know his real
No,
name. Are you
I only
kidding?
I only know him as black. Yeah, I only
Yeah.
know him as blue. Yeah, all right, man,
Yeah.
I get it. All right.
Exactly. That's funny. So, what was your career progression with Savannah? Yeah, obviously everybody starts in patrol, and then how long did it take you? I know you became a detective, you were in homicide. How long did it take you to get to that point?
Very, very lucky. I had a very blessed career. I had, like I said, I walked into the opportunity where the task force was formed right when I was. So I had been cut loose on the street for about 4 months before this task force was formed,
Hmm.
and then I did that for about 11 months. I get back from that. I go back to the downtown precinct. I'm there for a couple months, and I got picked up on an OCDF task force with the ATF. So they were working gangs in the neighborhood that I happened to beat to. It was my beat, so I knew, what's what, who's who,
Yeah.
and all that. So I got roped into that, which was a great opportunity. When that ended, uh, I wound up going to work for a narcotics task force out in two separate counties because I was not a fan of the way our local narcotics task force worked. I didn't want to be associated with the way they did business. So I left, went out to Liberty County and Long County and worked narcotics for 3 years. But while I was there, I wound up working two more OCDF case. I worked a storefront operation with the ATF, and then I worked another OCDF case on a gang out there with the FBI and DEA. So, I got a lot of experience during my narcotics time. And then when the interim chief became the actual chief in Savannah, I left the drug task force and came back to Savannah. I was on patrol for maybe 2 months when I came back, and then got pulled to another ATF task force where we were working gangs and guns. It was basically a domestic counterinsurgency.
Mm.
The second book I wrote, Ruffian, is details that time, and then that ran for about 2 years, and I went from that assignment and got promoted into homicide.
Now, thinking of Savannah again, I think of SCAD. I think of tourism. It's a beautiful city, but it's also one of the largest ports in the country. I think it, and I didn't realize that
It's
till I took.
third largest port on the East
Yes,
Coast.
yes. I was shocked. I took a paddle boat ride with my son and my daughter, and along the river, and I'm like, oh,
I
this
hope
is
I hope you didn't get in the water. I hope you
no,
stayed in the boat.
no. We stayed in the boat. I know better than that. But I was like, oh, and he was whoever the narrator was, like we're taking this tour, and yeah, they're the third. I'm like, oh wow. So immediately my cop brain goes to, I wonder how much smuggling is going on, how much dope or guns is going through that port.
Yeah, I mean the human
Oh,
trafficking, the dope, the all of those things coming off the ports. I mean, that's what makes Savannah Savannah. There's no, you know, it's such a cool place to police because you could see, you know, street crime to organized crime at all those different levels. It just all you had to do was work to find it.
who ran the docks, like criminality wise, or was there like a
Well,
organized?
the ILA, the you know, so specifically, that's always been in question. But
Okay,
the ILA, the union down there, those guys, they work their asses off. They load and unload those containers and that. But the amount of drugs that comes through that is so. Who knows it? Not exactly. Don't know exactly, but
okay,
right out the front gate of the ports in Garden City, you have the headquarters. You have the, what do you call it? The clubhouse for the outlaws. The outlaw
motorcycles.
motorcycle
Yeah.
gang. They're right out the front gate. Yeah,
Ah,
but we don't have big problem with that because they don't kill anybody. But if you're telling me that dope isn't coming out of the ports, going to the outlaws and getting
sure.
distributed, I mean, I'm like, your eyes aren't open.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but I mean, who runs it? Who knows, really? But
Okay.
it's not the Italians. It's we have a very big Greek uh, population down here,
Hmm.
and some of those old guys are always sitting around, never too worried about this, never too worried about that.
Okay.
But Savannah's biggest problem is violence, and the violence is perpetrated by the street level stuff. That
Sure.
that is
Yeah.
Savannah's biggest blight. That is the biggest problem.
Thanks everyone for joining me and former Savannah Police Department homicide detective Kevin Grogan. We're just getting started with Kevin's amazing career. Stay tuned for the exciting conclusion of this conversation next Sunday. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Cops and Riders podcast. If you haven't done so yet, could you take a minute and rate and review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? If you have already, thank you. As always, thank you for all of your support, and of course, let's be careful out there.